Long before cities, before roads or borders, before the idea of history itself, human life unfolded in open landscapes. There were no walls between sky and ground, no ceilings to interrupt the passage of light. Each day began not by decision, but by illumination. The first humans did not measure time. They inhabited it. Morning arrived as a gradual brightening, not an event. Night followed as a deepening quiet, not an ending. In this world, attention was survival. The movement of light across the land revealed paths. The angle of the sun determined warmth. Shadows lengthened and shortened, marking the hours without numbers. To notice these changes was not optional. It was how life continued. The sun governed movement without instruction. When it rose, people stirred. When it stood high, work slowed. When it descended, gathering began. Fire was kindled as its echo, a small earthly imitation of a greater light above. Around these fires, food was shared, stories were shaped, memory was passed without words. The sun was not worshipped, not yet. It was watched. Its consistency inspired trust, its absence commanded respect. Over many generations, patterns emerged. Animals moved with the seasons. Plants returned after long absences. The sun did not explain these rhythms, it revealed them. Gradually, the human body aligned itself to this great cycle. Wakefulness followed dawn, rest followed darkness. Breathing slowed at night, movement returned with light. Without realizing it, humanity learned rhythm from the sky. This relationship was not abstract, it was immediate. A cloudy day altered plans. A short winter day demanded efficiency. A long summer evening extended conversation. Life adapted continuously to solar presence. There was no language for belief, only response. To live well was to notice well. Over thousands of years, this attention deepened. The sun became the first reference point. Direction was named by where it rose and fell. Time was sensed by its height in the sky. In this way, the sun became the first teacher. It taught patience through delayed return. It taught generosity through warmth shared by all. It taught endurance by outlasting every human life beneath it. Long before symbols, before monuments, before memory was fixed in stone, the sun shaped the human mind. Not as an object of devotion, but as a presence that could not be ignored. From this quiet attention, everything else would follow. Over time, attention became intention. The sky was no longer only watched, it was studied. As human groups returned to the same places season after season, year after year, they began to notice something subtle. The sun did not rise from the same point on the horizon. Each morning, its position shifted slightly. So slowly that only patience could reveal it. At first, these changes were felt rather than measured. Longer shadows, shorter days, colder mornings. Then, one morning, the change stopped. The sun paused at the edge of its journey. And then it turned back. This moment became known not through language, but through return. It happened again the following year. And again. A reliable threshold in an otherwise moving world. Gradually, humans began to mark these moments. A stone placed where the light touched first. A notch carved where a shadow rested longest. These were not decorations. They were memories made solid. Across wide landscapes, separated by distance and language, the same impulse emerged. People aligned themselves with the sky. Stone circles appeared not as enclosures, but as open instruments. They framed the horizon. They directed the eye. They taught attention to endure. Some were simple, a single upright stone. Others grew complex, layered with precision. Passageways were carved so narrow that light could only enter once each year. On that morning, the sun reached inward. Not forcefully, not dramatically, but precisely. Light traveled along stone that had waited through hundreds of winters. This was not spectacle. It was confirmation. The sky remained faithful to its path. These structures did not dominate the land. They listened to it. They turned landscape into memory. Time itself became visible. The sun's highest climb marked fullness. Its lowest arc signaled restraint. Between these extremes, life adjusted. Food was stored, journeys planned, gatherings anticipated. The sky had become predictable. Not controlled, not owned, but understood. This understanding did not belong to individuals. It was held collectively. Knowledge was preserved not in writing, but in alignment. Children learned where to stand to see the sun return. Elders remembered when the light would change. In this way, memory crossed generations without words. The sun did not demand belief, only presence. To stand in the right place at the right time, and to watch. These moments were not rare. They were inevitable. Each year, the same light returned. Each year, it confirmed the same truth. Time moved forward, but meaning remained. Stone outlasted memory. Memory outlasted lives. And above them all, the sun continued its silent passage. From this shared attention, a new understanding emerged. Human life could be organized around the sky, not through force, but through rhythm. With settled ground came waiting. For the first time, human life depended not only on movement, but on patience. Seeds were placed into dark soil. Nothing happened. Days passed, then weeks. Trust was no longer immediate. It was extended forward into time. The sun became the unseen partner in every decision. Too little light and nothing grew. Too much heat and life withdrew. Balance became essential. From this balance, agriculture emerged. Fields followed the slope of the land. Planting followed the length of the day. The sky was consulted before the soil. Slowly, communities learned to read the year as a whole. The sun's return at specific points signaled action. Planting, harvest, rest. Time was no longer only personal. It was shared. Calendars emerged not as abstractions, but as tools of survival. They were shaped from observation, not invention. Marks cut into bone, stones arranged in sequence, festivals repeated at fixed moments. The sun gave structure to the year. With structure came coordination. Many hands worked the same fields. Many families relied on the same harvest. Life required cooperation at scale. The sun's reliability made this possible. Disputes were settled by season, journeys planned around daylight, gatherings timed to moments of abundance. Order emerged not through command, but through alignment. Leadership reflected this same pattern. Those who governed did so by demonstrating harmony with the sky. Authority was associated with balance. Excess was seen as disruption. Law mirrored the steady return of light. Predictable, impartial, visible to all. The sun did not choose sides. Its path was the same for every field, every dwelling, every person. This impartiality gave it power without force. Civilizations expanded, but the sun remained unchanged. Walls rose, names were given, stories accumulated. Yet beneath them, the same cycle persisted. Dawn called workers to the land. Midday slowed labor. Evening gathered people home. Architecture began to reflect this order. Homes faced the light. Streets followed solar paths. Public spaces opened to the sky. The sun was built into civilization, not as ornament, but as foundation. In this way, time became predictable, and predictability allowed culture to deepen. Art flourished, craft refined, knowledge accumulated, all under the same unchanging light. The sun became the quiet center around which life turned, unquestioned, ever present. From this solar order, something new began to form. Meaning, not imposed, but felt. The sun had moved from guide to marker to structure. Soon it would become symbol. As societies grew older, their observations grew deeper. The sun was no longer only a measure of time or a foundation for order. It became a language. Not a remindful language of words, but a symbolic one, shaped from repeated experience. Every morning, light returned. Every evening, it departed. And between these two movements, life took shape. It was natural that humans would begin to describe this presence as living. Across many lands, the sun was given stories not to replace observation, but to hold it. A traveler crossing the sky, a radiant eye, a flame carried in a vessel of light, a steady heart beating above the world. The images differed, but the feeling did not. The sun was understood as generous. It warmed without being asked. It illuminated without being paid. It nourished fields without being praised. This generosity became sacred, not as submission, but as gratitude, a quiet recognition of dependence. As the sun's meaning expanded, human life began to mirror it more consciously. The arc of a day resembled the arc of a life. A beginning at dawn, a fullness at midday, a decline toward evening, a disappearance into night. In many traditions, this resemblance was not merely poetic. It became a framework for understanding existence itself. The sun's descent did not signal defeat. It signaled passage, because it returned, always. So darkness, too, was reimagined. Night was not simply absence. It was a realm of renewal, a hidden journey, a necessary interval. In the stillness of night, the world rested. Animals withdrew. Human voices softened. And in that resting, the promise of return was carried forward. This pattern shaped ritual. Not rituals of fear, but of timing. People gathered at thresholds. The first light of the year, the longest day, the shortening afternoons, the return of warmth. These gatherings were acts of alignment, an agreement between human life and cosmic rhythm. The sun's journey became a story of continuity, and that continuity offered reassurance in a world where everything else changed. Children grew, elders faded, storms altered landscapes, yet the sun continued. It crossed the sky as it had before. It touched stone and water and skin in the same quiet way. In this constancy, people found an image of endurance, and endurance became a virtue. To live well was to remain steady through change. Even the idea of death shifted under this sunlight, not as a final break, but as a descent, a lowering, a passage through darkness, and then, in some form, a return. This did not erase grief, but it framed it. It placed human loss within a larger rhythm. Over time, the sun's symbolism entered everything. In carvings, in patterns, in circular forms that echoed its shape, in spirals that suggested motion, in radiant lines that suggested blessing. The sun was not only seen, it was remembered in art. It was carried into daily life, and in that carrying, the sun became more than a light above. It became a presence within culture, a quiet center of meaning. From guide to marker to structure to symbol. And still, its nature remained unchanged. It rose, it traveled, it set. And beneath it, humanity continued to interpret, to remember, and to align. As generations followed one another, a deeper understanding emerged. Time did not move only forward. It returned. The sun made this visible. Each year, it traced the same path across the sky. Each year, the same moments arrived. Cold yielded to warmth. Darkness shortened. Light expanded. This repetition shaped how human beings understood existence. Life was not a straight line moving toward disappearance. It was a cycle. Birth followed absence. Growth followed stillness. Rest followed fullness. The seasons taught this lesson again and again. Nothing was permanent, and nothing was truly lost. Fields lay empty after harvest. Trees stood bare through winter. Yet beneath the surface, life waited. The sun's return signaled renewal, not as a surprise, but as a promise kept. Civilizations rose within this understanding. They expanded, organized, and eventually declined. But the sun remained indifferent to their fortunes. It rose over villages and capitals alike. It shone on beginnings and endings without distinction. This impartial rhythm encouraged patience. Change was expected. Loss was absorbed into continuity. Rituals developed to anchor this awareness, not to stop time, but to move with it. Festivals returned at the same moment each year. Songs were repeated, movements rehearsed. In repetition, memory stayed alive. Children learned by doing what had been done before. Elders guided not through command, but through example. The sun overhead confirmed the rhythm. Circular forms appeared everywhere, in calendars, in architecture, in art. Circles suggested wholeness. No beginning, no end. Spirals added movement, the sense that return never repeated exactly. Each cycle carried change within it. This worldview favored endurance over conquest, continuity over urgency. To act in harmony with time was wiser than to rush against it. The sun's slow pace taught restraint. Its daily certainty taught trust. Through drought and abundance, through expansion and collapse, this rhythm persisted. Structures fell. Names were forgotten. Languages faded. But the same sunlight continued to touch the ground. In this continuity, people found perspective. Individual lives were brief, yet they belonged to something enduring. The sun bound past and future into a single experience. Each dawn contained memory. Each sunset carried promise. Time, as the sun revealed it, was not an enemy. It was a companion. And in its repeating path, humanity learned how to remain. As understanding matured, attention slowly turned inward. The sun was no longer only observed in the sky. It was recognized within experience. Light had always shaped the outer world. Now, it began to shape awareness itself. Morning light did more than reveal the land. It stirred the body, lifted the mind, brought clarity. Evening darkness did more than hide forms. It slowed breath, softened thought, invited rest. The same rhythm that guided seasons also governed the human interior. Wakefulness followed light. Fatigue followed its withdrawal. Emotion shifted with the length of days. Awareness expanded under brightness and turned inward under shadow. Slowly, people learned to listen to these changes. Health was found in alignment. Not constant activity, not constant rest, but movement followed by stillness. The sun offered a model for balance. It did not remain at its peak, nor did it vanish forever. It moved, and in moving, it sustained life. Human effort began to reflect this lesson. Periods of work were followed by pause. Celebration followed labor. Silence followed sound. Attention itself became rhythmic. Focus and release. Engagement and withdrawal. Light, once a physical presence, became a metaphor for understanding. To be illuminated was to see clearly. To be in darkness was not failure, but preparation. In this way, the sun's journey offered guidance without instruction. It suggested that clarity could not be forced, that insight arrives when conditions are right. Stillness gained value, not as absence of life, but as its renewal. Just as the land rests under night, the mind rests in quiet. The inner sun was never separate from the outer one. They moved together, one visible, one felt. This understanding required no temple, no boundary, only attention. To notice when energy rose, to allow when it faded, to live in rhythm rather than resistance. In this alignment, human life felt less divided. Body and world moved together. Light outside and light within mirrored one another. And in that mirroring, the ancient relationship completed its arc. As understanding matured, attention slowly turned inward. The sun was no longer only observed in the sky. It was recognized within experience. Light had always shaped the outer world. Now, it began to shape awareness itself. Morning light did more than reveal the land. It stirred the body, lifted the mind, brought clarity. Evening darkness did more than hide forms. It slowed breath, softened thought, invited rest. The same rhythm that guided seasons also governed the human interior. Wakefulness followed light. Fatigue followed its withdrawal. Emotion shifted with the length of days. Awareness expanded under brightness and turned inward under shadow. Slowly, people learned to listen to these changes. Health was found in alignment. Not constant activity, not constant rest, but movement followed by stillness. The sun offered a model for balance. It did not remain at its peak, nor did it vanish forever. It moved, and in moving, it sustained life. Human effort began to reflect this lesson. Periods of work were followed by pause. Celebration followed labor. Silence followed sound. Attention itself became rhythmic. Focus and release. Engagement and withdrawal. Light, once a physical presence, became a metaphor for understanding. To be illuminated was to see clearly. To be in darkness was not failure, but preparation. In this way, the sun's journey offered guidance without instruction. It suggested that clarity could not be forced, that insight arrives when conditions are right. Stillness gained value, not as absence of life, but as its renewal. Just as the land rests under night, the mind rests in quiet. The inner sun was never separate from the outer one. They moved together, one visible, one felt. This understanding required no temple, no boundary, only attention. To notice when energy rose, to allow when it faded, to live in rhythm rather than resistance. In this alignment, human life felt less divided. Body and world moved together. Light outside and light within mirrored one another. And in that mirroring, the ancient relationship completed its arc. The sun has not changed. It rises as it always has. It travels the same patient arc across the sky. And it sets without pause, without announcement. Civilizations have come and gone beneath it. Names have been forgotten. Structures have returned to Earth. Languages have softened into silence. Yet the same light continues to touch the ground. Morning still brings awakening. Evening still invites rest. Fields still respond to warmth. Bodies still follow day and night. Much has changed in how humans live. Very little has changed in how life responds to light. The ancient relationship has never been broken. It has only grown quiet. Beneath clocks and walls, beneath schedules and screens, the same rhythm remains. Light arrives. Warmth follows. Darkness returns. This cycle requires no belief, only awareness. To notice the day beginning. To feel the slowing of evening. To remember that human life still unfolds within a greater movement. The ancient religion of the sun was never confined to temples or names. It lived in attention, in rhythm, in continuity. And as long as the sun rises and life responds, that relationship endures.